Welcome to the Girlfriend God Podcast, a podcast in search of and in service to the divine feminine. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to follow it, rate it, review it, and share it with your friends. Now, together, let's find the divine. Today's episode is sponsored by New World Women.
If you are a woman light worker, change maker, creative, or spiritual entrepreneur who wants to affect change from the divine feminine principles and be in like-hearted community, then check out New World Women, a company created by women, for women, with women. Hi, I'm Dawn Morningstar, and yes, that's my given name, one of 3 co-founders of New World Women, a movement of diverse women standing together, claiming our power, and manifesting a world beyond patriarchy. Kelly, host of The Girlfriend God, is one of New World Women's founding mothers. So join with Kelly and women from around the world who know it's time for the energy of the goddess to reawaken in each of us. Check out the Women's Proclamation for a New World at bit.ly/NWWGFG. That's bit.ly, bit.ly/NWWGFG.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of The Girlfriend God. Today I'm happy to welcome Rachel Patterson. And Rachel is an English witch who has been walking the pagan pathway for over 30 years. She is a working wife and mother who's been lucky enough to have had over 30 books published. That's impressive. Some of them bestsellers. Her passion is to learn, and she loves to study and research using books, online resources, schools, and wonderful mentors. She's learned a lot over the years and continues to learn each and every day, but she has learned the most from actually getting outside and practicing her craft. Also, Rachel likes to laugh and eat cake. It's Rachel's greatest pleasure to give talks to pagan groups and co-run open rituals and workshops run by the Kitchen Witch Coven. She's also a High Priestess of the Kitchen Witch Coven and an elder at the online Kitchen Witch School of Natural Witchcraft. She's also the host of the Pagan Portal Podcast, which airs regularly on the usual podcast streaming platforms. She's a columnist with Fate and Fortune magazine and a contributor to several magazines such as Pagan Dawn and Witchcraft and Wicca. You can find her regular ramblings and on her personal blog and her YouTube channel, and all that information is in the show notes. Rachel's craft is a combination of old religion, witchcraft, Wicca, hedge witchery, kitchen witchery, and folk magic. Her heart is that of an English kitchen witch. Finally, in 2023, she was listed in the Watkins Mind, Body, Spirit magazine's Spiritual 100. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you. That was always long. Sorry about that.
It's always, when you hear your own accomplishments read online, you're always like, well, yeah, I did all that, right? I did all that. It's exciting. So before we get into our talk today about the triple goddess, I have a couple kind of clarifying questions for our listeners who might not know what some of these things are. So can you talk a little bit about both kitchen witchery, which I think probably more people are familiar with, and hedge witchery?
Okay, yeah.
Just like, what's the elevator speech for those two things?
Kitchen witchery is really where my heart is. I love to cook, I love to bake, and I bring all of the magic that we're used to working with magical herbs, with magical items in air witchcraft. I use food in the same way. Every ingredient has magical properties. Yes. So I bring that into my food, into my cooking. I also use usual kitchen cupboard ingredients in my spell working as well. Right. So that's kind of the kitchen witch side of it. And also using whatever you've got to hand. Right. No fancy tools or anything, just whatever you've got to hand. Hedge witch is a little bit different. The hedge witch for me is about working with the other world. So the hedge is a liminal space. So when you ride the hedge or step over the hedge, you're going into the other worlds, the upper world, the underworld. So a hedge witch usually has one foot always in the other worlds. So that's really hedge witch. It kind of ties into working with nature and all of the items that Mother Nature provides as well, leaves, sticks, twigs, whatever, for magical purpose as well. So they cross over each other, really.
Right. We have a few different terms for that here in the United States. Some of us call it road working. Some of us call it just walking between worlds.
Yeah.
And a handful of other things. And I like what you said about kitchen witchery, because I have a friend who was a shaman that I studied with when I lived in Pittsburgh. And he and I had this conversation because he became a good friend. And he said, Kelly, I feel you. When I was younger, I used to put a lot of effort into creating ritual around everything that I do. He said, but I'm older now and I have a busy life, and sometimes I can just carve a rune into a Pop-Tart and call it a day.
Perfect kitchen witchcraft.
Right,
yes,
right.
Absolutely. There's magic in everything.
And I feel like over time, right? I mean, I do these things not just for myself, but to honor and appeal to the goddess. But I also know that she's not going to judge me on the days that I don't do those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So I feel like our magic, I don't know, matures into everyday magic. If that makes sense.
I think it's I don't separate being a witch from the mundane stuff I do.
Right.
I'm a witch whether I'm vacuuming the carpets or making a cake or doing a full-on ritual. Doesn't matter. I'm a witch throughout all of that. So you find magic in the everyday stuff.
Right. Which I think is key to any spiritual practice, right? I mean, in Eastern traditions, we would just call that mindfulness.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you study enough spiritual traditions, they all have some pretty basic components in
absolutely, yeah. And we're all busy too, aren't we? So you've got to make that magic work in your mundane life as well.
Right, because our traditions come from ancient times and prehistory, so they likely had more time on their hands.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
they didn't scroll on Facebook for hours.
Right. I mean, because they didn't, well, and I also feel like in the ancient world, here in the modern world, walking around as humans, it's like our spiritual life is here and our material life is here. But in ancient times, there wasn't that division. It was all inclusive. It was all the same to them. And they walked around with wonder all the time, right? Yeah, now we know how things work and what shit means, and it's a little more boring, I think, than it would have been there. But,
I do appreciate toilets and showers and things, though.
Exactly.
Let's not go too far back.
Right. I always say that. I wish I could be born again into a time when we were all hunter-gatherers, and then my practical voice goes, "Are you really sure that's what you want?" Because you do like a hot shower, right?
Yeah.
But I guess all things in balance, right? Yeah. So I was trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to ask you right off the bat, but you listen to the show. I mean, I will interrupt you and ask questions as they arise.
We'll see where it goes.
Okay. So let's talk about the triple goddess, because I actually don't know the answer to this question, which is, when did the concept of the triple goddess come into being? Because I know that Mother Maiden Crone is a relatively contemporary construct, right? Yeah. So
there's no straightforward answer, but I think It is one of the things I was first taught. My spiritual pathway began in Wicca pretty much because it was pre-internet and the only books I could get hold of were
Right.
Wicca. That's all that was around at the time. And one of the first things that I learnt about was this idea of the triple goddess. So I kind of took it as read that it was ancient. It is and it isn't.
Right.
The idea really seems to stem from good old Robert Graves in the 40s. He wrote a book, The White Goddess, which a lot of people are familiar with. If you read it, it's interesting, but do take it with a big pinch of salt. There's an awful lot of, let's call it fiction stuff in there. But there's some interesting ideas in there. And a lot of modern ideas have sort of stemmed from his. And the triple goddess is in his book. There's a few references to it before then. There's a kind of reference in one of Aleister Crowley's books in the 1920s, Moonchild. He describes a maiden, a lover, and a crone. Gerald Gardner wrote about it in the 50s as well. There were variations of it, but it does seem that the general idea that we work with now really is from Robert Graves's book.
Right.
As for going back further, if you go back to ancient Greece, ancient Rome, wherever you want to pick, there isn't really that idea of maiden, mother, crone. There are triple goddesses, kind of. Hecate with her three faces.
Right.
There are sisters sometimes, but there's not that maiden, mother, crone age idea. Right. So I stand corrective if anybody discovers it. But in my research, there doesn't seem to be anything ancient that is in the format that we work with it now.
Right.
So it's a little bit of pick and mix, really, from various sources.
Right. Well, and in a certain regard, we don't really know what the original pre-Christian pagan ideals were because they were co-opted by the Greeks and Romans.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we can know what we know about the pre-Greco-Roman period, but we can really only know through anthropology and archaeology, and those things, as we know, are inherently biased, and you know what I mean? So it's really hard to know what ancient culture was like. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure if we got in the Doctor's time machine and, the TARDIS and flew back, we would have to rewrite quite a lot of history, I think.
I agree. I mean, some things we do know, like I was saying, like the ancients probably had more free time than we did. And we do have evidence of that particularly in cave paintings, because cave paintings are an artistic endeavor. And you have to have leisure time to create art. Right?
Yeah.
Even if it was for the purpose of language or communication, it still takes a lot of time to make it.
Yeah. And you've got images too, haven't you, of Romans, for instance, laying on their couches being fed grapes and things. So
right.
That's time relaxing, isn't it?
Right. I mean, I'm way more interested in everything that came before them.
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah.
Well, because so much of our current time is based on that mythology and that mythology alone. And, there are hundreds of thousands of mythologies and folklore traditions and spiritual traditions in the world.
Yeah.
But that's a topic for a different episode, because that's very much about the patriarchy and the colonization through religion and blah, blah, blah. I'm shocked when people don't know that it hasn't always been that way. Right? So tell me a little bit about what you have found in your research about the triple goddess.
So I'd say it was one of the first things I learned about, and I learned about the goddesses that fall into those three different categories. Mm-hmm. And most of them you can slot into maiden, mother, or crone. Right. Some of them cross over. And the more I worked with them, the more I thought, do you know there's a gap? There's a really big gap between mother and crone, particularly in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that the step was too far, really. I am a mother, but my children are grown up.
Mm-hmm.
I, I'm mother to a dog, but he needs me still. But I'm not ready for the crone yet. I'm not. I don't feel nearly wise enough to step into my crone years. So for me, there's a bit of a gap between the two. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was researching, I realised that I don't know who it was. Someone came up with the idea of putting a fourth one in there.
Yeah.
So you have maiden, mother, matriarch, crone. Some use the term queen instead of matriarch, but I like
Okay.
matriarch. It sounds a bit more in charge to me.
Mm-hmm.
I like that word. It's for a person of my age stepping from through menopause
Mm-hmm.
and kind of in that stage where you've perhaps got a little bit more money to do what you want to do. You're no longer tied to being a mother or running this or doing that or
Mm-hmm.
listening to this. You've got your own time, your own space, and you kind of get a little bit lost. And I think putting the label matriarch on it gives you a bit of a purpose. It gives you a bit of a hat to wear, if you like,
Mm-hmm.
to step into my own personality, to rediscover who I am now and what pathway I'm following
Mm-hmm.
before I step into that wise crone era.
Right.
So for me, that slotting that extra one in there seems to work. And if you think about the idea of the moon phases, 3 doesn't work, 4 works better. Maiden, mother, matriarch, crone is the waxing, the full, the waning, and the dark. The seasons work as well. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. That works with the 4 goddesses as well. The elements, earth, air, fire, water. That works as well with the 4 goddesses. So it all kind of fell into place for me that it needed that 4th one as well. But I also looked at it from a couple of different viewpoints. One of them was that there are goddesses that you can call upon that are in those categories.
Right.
But also from a personal point of view, that you can be in one of those phases yourself, or take on the energies of one of those phases yourself. So
Right.
there's a few different ways of looking at it. It's been a bit of a personal journey for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to say, don't you think that the mythology around the triple goddess, whether it's Mother, Maiden, Crone, or known by some other name, is just because throughout history, 3 has been such a magical number,
Yeah.
and still is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
speaking of the Greeks and Romans, they thought that 3 was the number of divinity, and it's how we measure so many other things other than the
Yeah.
ones that you mentioned, right? I mean, we measure time that way, morning, noon, and night. Like you said, the moon, right? We usually know,
Yeah.
moonrise or sunrise, high noon, and moonrise. And, we
3 is a
eat,
magical
we
number. We
eat,
use it in spells, don't we? Yeah.
right. We eat 3 meals a day. Uh, we even measure volume that way, right? Like width, height, depth. I have a whole list because I was really fascinated with the number 3 for a
Yeah.
while.
So it is a magical number. It's a magical number for sure.
So I think that was a natural progression
Mhm.
for these stages of a goddess
Yeah.
or stages of a woman, right? So how do you feel about... Okay, I'm going to save that question for later. How do you incorporate triple goddesses into your magic? And I know that's a very vague question. So I guess a better question is, when is it appropriate for you personally to call upon a goddess that is seen as triplicate, like Hecate?
Right. I tend to work. Hecate's not actually one of the ones I ever really work with. I don't know why. It's just she's just never presented herself to me. But what I tend to do is work with them individually, but
Mhm.
because of their category they're in. That sounds like we're putting things in boxes. I know it doesn't work like that, but
Right.
if I am looking for, well, I work with the Kalak. The Kalak is my main goddess. She's a
Hmm.
crone. So if I'm doing divination or if I'm doing something that needs a bit of wisdom, a bit of
Hmm.
insight, a bit of truth, I'll call on a crone goddess because that's the wisdom energy, clarity energy that I need.
Hmm.
If I'm working a spell that needs a bit of new growth or a new venture or some new project I'm trying to push forward, I'll call on a maiden goddess because
Hmm.
that's that whole kind of spring young excitement kind of energy to
Right,
it.
right,
So I'll work with the goddesses individually, bringing their qualities to the magic,
right.
if that makes sense.
Um, have you ever, like, the goddesses that you have worked with or work with currently, have you chosen them or have they chosen you, or a combination
Or
of both?
they choose me generally. They
Yeah.
choose me. Yeah. Throughout my entire spiritual pathway, I've
Uh,
found that they generally choose me.
Same,
Yeah.
same. Yeah. I might have an interest in a particular goddess,
Yeah.
but then it's like, after a couple weeks of like trying to work with her, I'm like just not feeling it. And I'm like, okay,
No.
not you. Okay.
No. No, I think they find you, don't they? And it's usually for a very good reason
Right,
too.
right. Right. Because right, like you say, each one has been with purpose.
Yeah.
Especially so I have worked with Hecate, and one of the most powerful spiritual experiences I think
Yeah.
I've ever had in working with a goddess.
Yeah.
She certainly packs a punch,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The Kalax like that. Very feisty. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think of other questions that I can ask you about your research and things that you've found that I might not have found, but I'm kind of drawing a blank. So I'm going to go way to left field and ask you about something else that has nothing to do
Fire
with purple
away.
goddesses
Fire away.
or kitchen witchery or hedge witchery or any of those things. My patron deity is what we know of today as Ellen of the Ways. And
Right.
and I bring this up because this is a kind of a thorn in my side with information online. Because somewhere along the way, finding Ellen became known as a Celtic goddess. I don't know that that's accurate.
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Okay, good.
I
Good,
think
good.
Celtic as well. Celtic is one of those words that are a bit misleading as well because it covers such a huge, vast area. It's
Right.
not just Ireland, Scotland, Wales. It stretches out across Europe as well. So it's a bit of a misleading one sometimes, I think.
Right. As is her association with the story, the now I can't think of the name of the story.
There's not a lot about her, is there? She is one of those goddesses that there's not a huge amount about.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot
Mm.
online, none of which I think is accurate.
No, I don't know of anything particularly archaeological or historical, factually historical about her.
Right.
No, she is one of
Well,
those ones that seems to have just appeared, isn't she?
so my go-to source on finding on Ellen of the Ways is Caroline Wise's book,
Yep,
Finding Ellen. Um,
yep,
but I'll tell you, she herself gave me some insight because so I am a casual acquaintance slash colleague of Liz Childs, who wrote the book Home to Her and has the Home to Her podcast.
yep.
And she was on Liz's show, Caroline Wise. I don't know how she told me it was a very long and complicated process to get her to come on the show because I tried unsuccessfully. Caroline Wise, as it turns out, is almost as elusive as Ellen
herself.
But what she said when she was on Liz's show, because she wrote Fighting Ellen a number of years ago, and she said that she mentioned a book that I have since read, which I'm sure was somebody's PhD dissertation, called The Antlered Goddess of Ancient Siberia. Or no, The Deer Goddess of Ancient Siberia.
Okay.
And that is where I think those are one and the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think there's a big reindeer connection with Ellen.
Yes. And I'm in the middle of writing a book about that, which involves so much research, I might decide to make it more casual and less academic. I mean, I'll still cite my sources, but you know what I mean? Because what I have found in my research is that there is mythology and symbolism associated with deer and deer goddesses across millennia, across cultures, across geographic locations. But I think it started there in that part of the world. Because that's where the traditions of the reindeer herding tribes come from. But a really cool magical thing happened to me about that too. You know how when you go online, information that is also probably wildly inaccurate some of the time, maybe not all the time, but some of the time.
Yeah.
You can look up any goddess that has any sort of mainstream knowledge. Like people have heard of Hecate, people have heard of all the Greek and Roman goddesses.
Yeah.
And you will inevitably find 6 different versions of these are the things that are associated with this goddess, this color, this flower, this crystal, this scent, this flower, whatever. But you cannot find that about Ellen. So
she is one of those, isn't she? She's one of those that doesn't have that information. And I think I have the problem in England with that. Ireland has all of its stories, its myths, its storytelling. All of the information's been passed down. Right. Wales has the Mabinogi, I'm rubbish at pronouncing that, where it's written down. So they've got all of their stories as well. England has nothing. We have nothing written down at all. We have ancient gods and goddesses of England.
Yeah.
But nothing was written down. No one could write. And nobody wrote anything down. And then, of course, we were the Romans, the Anglo-Saxons, the Normans, became a big old melting pot.
Right.
So finding information about those ancient English goddesses is really, really difficult because there might be one piece of stone with the name of the goddess on. That was found in a field somewhere, or one chalice with a name on.
Right.
So, and I think Ellen is in that she's in that realm that there isn't anything ancient written about her. It's really difficult.
Well, and there are deer stones all over England.
Yeah.
So
deers were food.
Right.
Deers were food and they were clothing. So they were really important in lots of cultures, weren't they?
Right. So, but the magical thing that happened to me was I had a guest on like the second season of the podcast, and she does ancestral healing. And so part of what she did was like a guided meditation, right? And part of the guided meditation was like you're in a forest, you come to a clearing and there's a bridge and you cross the bridge. And when you cross the bridge in the guided meditation, you open your eyes and then you describe to her what you're seeing, what the landscape is. and my landscape was a frozen tundra. And what I was saying earlier about the associations, since none existed for Ellen, I kind of made up my own just as a practice to feel closer to her. That was
Yeah.
very personal to me. And I always associated green malachite with her
Okay.
because of the forest and
Yeah. Nature.
all of
Yep.
that. And do you know where the largest green malachite mineral deposits are in the world?
Somewhere cold.
Take a guess. They're in the Ural Mountains, which is right by Siberia.
Right. Right.
And I was like, oh, okay,
Connections. We
yeah,
like
yeah.
connections.
So, which I
It is.
find affirming, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not textbook
Absolutely.
knowledge, but when I have the two
Absolutely.
meet, I
Yeah.
think, okay, I'm on to something here about who
It's
she
interest.
really
It's
is.
interesting you mentioned the correspondences, though. And when I'm writing books about different deities or whatever it is I'm writing about, I do a bit of a Google to see what comes up.
Mhm.
And I'm always interested to know there are these lists, aren't there? You get the flower and the crystal, and I've written those lists myself. But what I want to know is, why are those correspondences on those lists?
Exactly.
Where did they pick these things from? And
Right.
sometimes you can see them copied and pasted from website to website, but
Right.
with no explanation. I want to know why,
Right.
what those correspondences are, why they're there.
Right.
That's important to me. And that the
Yes.
story of the Malachite, that makes sense. That's a
Right.
good connection. That's a good
Right.
correspondence.
Right. Because I mean, our intuition uh, is verification of a
Oh, yeah.
source, even if it's
Yeah.
not in a textbook. And I'm sure if I did enough research, I might be able to find that connection. But I put a lot of stock in my own intuition because I
Yeah.
feel like that is how
Won't let you down. Will never let you
that is
down.
how the goddess speaks to me. And I
Yep.
think that's how anyone's god or goddess speaks to them
Yep.
because we've all had that experience, right? Where we're driving down the road and we come to a T and we don't know which way to go, and something tells us, go left.
Yep.
But we're willful humans, so we go right anyway. And then there's like a
We pay for it.
construction or a major accident with traffic,
Yeah.
and we go,
Yeah.
damn it, I knew I should have gone left. It's that voice
Yeah.
that I know isn't mine,
Yeah.
right?
It's experience that teaches you to learn to listen to that, though, isn't it? It does take time and experience to know that you should be listening to that.
Yes. So, do you think, well, I think I already know the answer to that. Like, if somebody's very young, they can work with a crone goddess if they're seeking
Yep.
wisdom, right? There's no rules about you have to be this
No.
age to this age to work with this
No, I
goddess or
don't
this
do
age to this.
rules. I don't do rules.
Right, right. There are no rules. But I'm like you, like do what works and what resonates with you on an emotional and spiritual level, but also do your research.
Oh, yeah, research is key anyway. But I think it is important to understand, particularly with the triple goddess, but I guess with any of the deities, really, they don't discriminate. Just because it's the triple goddess and it's a maiden or a mother or a crone or a matriarch, anyone of any age can work with any of the goddesses in any of their phases. Anyone, no matter what gender you are, what gender you identify with, whether you're alien or animal or don't care what you are, she doesn't discriminate. You can
Right,
work with her in any of those forms. She is there to provide support, guidance, whatever it is you need.
right, right.
But it's about recognizing those different qualities. So
Mhm.
yes, if you are 20, but you need some wisdom, you need some advice, then call on the crone. But if you are 97 and you want to do something a bit playful, call on the maiden energy.
Right.
All of those energies are within us. I believe they're all within us
Yes.
anyway. Just because I am now in my past the menopause doesn't mean that I'm not still, the maiden is still within me. I can still remember her just on my good days.
Right, right.
So those energies are all there and they are open to anyone and everyone. And the labels as well. I think we get hung up on labels too.
We do.
Because I know a lot of people don't identify with the mother label, mother energy. But I try and say, don't worry about the names, get rid of the names. If you don't resonate with the term mother, then call her something else, the nurturer, maybe. Just because you haven't got children doesn't mean you can't work with the mother phase. The mother phase covers nurturing, looking after yourself, birthing new businesses, birthing new ventures.
I fall into that category.
Or cats, or we get a bit hung up on those titles, and that needs to be thrown away, I think.
Somebody told me that, and I can't remember who said this to me, but somebody told me, you still have, because I had a full hysterectomy when I was 31, and which was the best thing I ever did.
Oh, I wish.
My only regret was that I didn't do it sooner. But somebody said to me, you still have womb energy, even if you don't have a womb. And that made a lot of sense to me at the time. Yeah. So I've continued to, because I was born with the ability to create life. And even though, as you say, and I've heard that a lot too, we give birth to all kinds of things. We give birth to ideas. Absolutely. I give birth to books and podcasts and, all of that. So, tell me about your most profound experience in working with a triple goddess.
Oh, now there's a big question. I think it's probably that first, when they're trying to get your attention for that first time. And the Kalech did it with me, and it was many years ago, and I wasn't listening. Either I wasn't listening or I didn't realize I was supposed to be listening, perhaps, and she kept trying to get my attention. I read her name in a book, and then I saw it somewhere else, and I'm a bit intrigued but didn't listen. And then I kept getting these messages, and then it's that kind of light bulb moment when you make that realization, isn't it, that it is a goddess who is trying to get your attention. And this wasn't just this was a big old feisty, grumpy, kick butt old biddy that was trying to get my attention. And once I made that realization, everything started to fall into place.
Right.
And that was many years ago, and she's been with me ever since. And she still shouts at me occasionally when I'm not listening. But I think that big, profound light bulb moment when you realize who it is and that it is something really quite important, and that this is going to be probably the one that's going to be with you for a very long time, was just an amazing experience.
Right. Cool. So, do you want to, since the Kaliak is your patron deity, do you want to talk about her a little bit? Do you want to say more?
Yeah, no, happy to.
Well, she's popular, right?
Yeah, she is. She seems to be growing more popular, actually.
Right.
I don't know, because of the times that we're in. Maybe we need more of the feisty, no-nonsense kind of goddesses.
Right.
She does hail from originally Scotland, but you'll find her in Ireland as well. But she's a bit of a globetrotter, so you will find her across Europe as well. She is a crone. Everywhere that I've seen her, she is a crone. She builds the landscape. So there's a lot of stories that tell of her with an apron full of rocks. And she's a giant. I should mention she's a giant. Walking the landscape, and her apron string breaks and the rocks fall out and they create the landscape of Scotland, Ireland, wherever it might be. That seems to be a kind of repeating story for her. She's actually very much connected as well with the stag and the deer. She's quite an animal deity, very much water as well, the land and the water. So she's earth and water, the oceans, the rivers. She's a creatrix. She's a creator goddess of the landscape. But she's been with me for many, many years. But the other one more recently is one that a lot of people might not know is Sulis. She is one of the real English deities. She is only found in one place. She's only found in Bath, in Somerset, in England, nowhere else. But archaeological evidence shows that she has been worshipped for thousands and thousands of years, right back to Mesolithic man. So, way, 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 way back. But she's connected with the only natural hot springs that we have in England. And she's been worshipped there for many, many years. She came to me I was visiting that area, and she made herself known a few years back. But they're quite a nice balance, because the Cailleach is definitely a winter goddess. She is autumn, she's winter, she brings snow, she brings ice. The Sulis is a solar spring goddess.
Right.
So there's quite a nice balance for me to have. I tend to work more with Sulis in the spring and summer months, and then Cailleach in the winter months as well. So it works out quite nicely for me. But as my pathway's gone on, I've worked with a lot of deities from different pantheons. As it's gone on, I'm honing in now more to the deities on the land that I actually live on. It's more difficult to find out information, like with Ellen, more difficult to find out the information. But that's where I'm being drawn to, the energies on the land that I'm living on.
Right.
It's a bit of a journey.
I had a friend, that I knew only online for a brief time when I was in Pittsburgh, and she always talked about learn about the land you're living on.
Oh, yeah.
Learn as much as you can, because how else are you going to tap into it when it's been redone over time so many times by so many different hands and so much different machinery, and you know what I mean? And to learn to love the land that you live on.
Yeah. It's all energy, isn't it? We work with energy, and everything has that energy. And the land that your house is on has layers of history below it. So I think it's important to connect with that.
Right. I do too. But sometimes it is impossibly hard to find. Like I can find city records because those are public information but they only go back as far as the founding of the town. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I guess my friend who was an anthropology minor, she told me to not spend too much time worrying about what was here before, because as far as she knew, it was all marshland. So, I mean, there were things living in it, but probably not people.
Yeah, I'm not sure you want to connect with those slimy things.
Right. Yeah, nobody was living here then. So now, millions of years ago, could have been a different story. But
yeah.
But again, our written history will only take us so far, and even archaeology and anthropology will only take us so far.
Yeah.
So what would you, if somebody came to you who was either taking class from you or just seeking spiritual guidance, and they said, I feel very drawn to the concept of a triple goddess, who do you recommend I work with, or how do I figure out who I'm supposed to be working with? What would you tell them?
We're back to research again, I think, once you get a name. But if you're actually looking to connect with a goddess, you're not sure who. It sounds really boring when I say this, but I think meditation is your key. It is spending that quiet time to connect with that voice. to see where it leads you. Not all deities will give you their name at first.
Right.
It's a relationship, isn't it? You're building a relationship. Just because it's not a physical in-person relationship doesn't make it any different. You've got to build
Right.
that trust.
Right.
Once you get a name, then you can start learning about their myths, their
Right.
stories, what personalities they are. But yeah, I think it's quiet time to
Yes.
connect
I,
with that inner voice, to find out what, why, who.
right. So I spiritually advise women who are on a goddess path, whether they're new to the goddess path or they've been on it, but they feel like they've strayed a little bit, they feel disconnected. I emphasize prayer and meditation above all other things. And it
Yeah.
is, and that is the thing that they have the hardest time with. And I tell them
Yeah.
exactly what you just said. This is a relationship. What would you
Yeah.
do if you were dating somebody? You would spend time with that person. You would get
Yeah.
to know that person. You would let them get to know you. It's the same thing. The same
Yeah.
applies. Uh,
Absolutely.
and it really doesn't take much to pray and meditate. You know what I mean? I take 20 minutes in the morning. Now, granted, I've been doing it a long time, so it's easier for me to like get in the zone.
Yes.
Uh, However, I still have my days where I can't get in the zone, especially if I haven't done it first thing in the morning, because my brain has had a
Not a
chance
routine.
to fire
Yeah.
and you know what I mean? But even me, like if I can't get in the zone after 15 minutes, I give up because anything
Yeah.
after that, I'm just fighting with myself.
Yeah. It's not going to happen. Yeah.
I can try again later. I can say, okay, help me to be a good person today and not a dick, and I'll try again tomorrow, you know?
But you're right. It is a two-way thing as well, isn't it? It is about them understanding you and vice versa. But if you've got to put the effort in, if you're
Yes,
not going to put the effort in, then why should they bother with you? Really?
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the way my belief system works, I feel like if you're talking about like the goddess, like the OG goddess, right? Creator of everything that is and everything that isn't, um, that's a different story because she loves me unconditionally and doesn't give a
Oh
shit
yeah.
what I do,
Yeah.
right? So my
She is
prayers
everything.
to,
Yeah.
my appeals to her can just be, you know what, help me to not be a dick today.
Yeah.
And I trust that
Yeah.
she will do that, right? Or
Yeah.
do for me what I can't do for myself, because sometimes I have to meet her halfway.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, yeah. So there was one other thing I was going to ask you, but it kind of flew out the window. So, is there anything else that you want the listeners of this episode to know, particularly about triple goddesses, and then we can go into the three questions that I ask all new guests at the end of every episode.
I think it's just about being open to whoever makes himself known to you, because it will be for a reason.
Yes.
And just listen to, stuff. Quite often they tell you things that you don't really want to hear.
Yep.
But they're generally right. They're
Yeah.
always right, let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. They are
But yeah,
always right.
yeah. Be open to it. They are there to help you.
Yes.
So be open to it. And again, doesn't matter what phase they are or what label it is, just be open to it. That their energy is there to help and support you. So yeah, listen to them.
Okay. So, if you've listened to an episode, you already know what the three questions are. If you haven't, then it's a surprise.
Surprise.
So, what is the first question is tell me something about yourself that people would be surprised to learn.
But I'm fairly out there. I talk to people quite a lot online, so there's probably not a lot that's
It's usually something quirky. Like I always say that like mine is I like to take black and white photos in old cemeteries.
Oh, cool. Fabulous. Well, I am quite known for my cake. I do love baking. I love making cakes. I love making bread. I actually not that fussed about eating them. I love the baking process. I'm not so fussed about eating them. I like good old-fashioned puddings. I like apple pie and rice pudding and bread and butter pudding and all of those things. So all of the stuff out there about cake, love making it, very rarely actually eat it.
Okay. That is surprising.
There. I mean, I will, but
right. I like to, I can't bake. I burn everything I bake, but I am a really good cook, so I get that.
oh, there you go.
And I love to cook for other people.
Yeah, bake it's my therapy. It's
Right,
my
right,
escape to the kitchen to bake. Is the whole process of it
right,
is
right.
my happy place.
Okay. Do you watch TV?
Yeah.
Okay, so the second question is, what is your current favorite TV series?
Oh, that's Stargate Atlantis. My
Ooh.
all-time favorite, Stargate Atlantis and Elementary. I love Sherlock Holmes. So,
Okay,
and I like the Elementary. Bit of detective, any detective thing with a bit of humor. Like a bit of humor with my murder.
right, right. Do you watch Only Murders in the Building?
I haven't got to that one yet. I have heard it's very good.
It
I
is.
haven't got
It
to that
is.
one yet.
I mean, that really is the perfect blend of humor and murder.
Yes, yeah. Sounds right up my street. Yeah.
My wife and I just finished watching a German series called Murder Mindfully. And
Okay.
and it's about, it was very good, very clever, very funny. It's
Right.
about
Look out for
an
that.
attorney, a criminal attorney, and who starts murdering his clients
There's probably a few that would like to do that.
because they're all, gangsters and drug lords
Right.
and whatever.
Right.
But he does so with mindfulness.
Right. But that's
Because
fine then.
he goes through this like 6 week multiple session mindfulness training and then
Right.
applies it to his life. And because the first thing he
Awesome.
wants to do is
Okay.
have more time for his family. So in order to do that, he murders he murders a client. It's very good. It's very good. I think you would enjoy it.
That sounds perfect for me.
Who knew the Germans were funny? Because that's like the third German series we've watched that was really funny.
Actually, I did visit Germany for the first time last year, and it was beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful country, and the people were lovely, and they
Yeah.
had good food,
Uh-huh.
very good food.
Okay. And then your final question is if your life were a movie, what would be the theme song on the soundtrack?
Well, it would have to be from the 80s. I didn't ever leave 1985. So all the music I listen to is 80s pop.
Mhm.
So it would probably have to be an early 80s Madonna or Cyndi Lauper or one of those. But perhaps something a bit uplifting. The Only Way Is Up by Yaz or something like that.
Okay.
Upbeat, 80s, bright colours, leg warmers, the whole shebang.
I like The Only Way Is Up.
Yeah.
I think we're going to mark that as your answer.
Yeah.
I haven't added the last couple seasons to it, but I do have a public Spotify playlist with everybody's answer to this question. And
Oh,
as you can
okay.
imagine, it is a very eclectic
Eclectic,
list.
for sure.
Couple repeats once in a while, but not
Yeah.
often. Not often. So
That's my happy music.
yeah, me too. I don't know how old you are and you don't have to tell me, but I'm 52. So the
Oh, I
80s were
beat you.
also my
Beat you.
jam.
56. I'm 56.
Okay, okay. But same age, same music we grew up
Yeah.
with, right?
Yeah. I
Children
love
of the
it.
80s. Our
I love it.
experiences were probably different since you grew up there and I grew up here. But the music was
But
the
same
same.
music. Yeah.
Okay, well, as I said, I will be in touch when I've got the episode all finished up. And thank you for taking the time to meet with me today.
Oh, thank you for the invitation.
And as I always say, To the guests at the end of the episode, may the peace and the love of the goddess be with you.
And with you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Brilliant. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for watching or listening to The Girlfriend God. Don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe, follow, and comment. Episodes drop every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and you can follow The Girlfriend God on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.